Chocky Chat. We're episode 129. It's the 1st of March. Yes, it is. It's the 1st of March. Who'd have thought most of the year's gone by already? How's everybody doing? I've seen some absolutely, truly amazing stuff this week. Absolutely. Do you know what? People seem to really love Easter and Mother's Day. People get, I think, the most creative. I know, like, lots of people do volume in December for Christmas, but the stuff that people do for kind of Easter and Mother's Day, it just really is that spring feeling, isn't it, of bright, bold colours. And I think because everybody's well practiced as well, right? So by the time they get to Easter, they've like really got their groove on and they start producing maybe some of their best stuff, right? So absolutely amazing. Let's give some shout outs there. Oh gosh, let me scroll all the way back. Chocolate Neander, hello. Linda there, and Jordan I can see. Mark, Valrona UK, how you doing, Mark? Harriet, how are you? Ron's bonbons. Ron's recovering. He had a poorly eye. He sent me a photo earlier. Looks pretty. Looks like he's had a good old slap to the chops. Billy there. Who else we got? Scottish Chocolates. Dolce Mara. Hello. Nadia's posting some lovely stuff this week. Gosh, everybody. Billy gave us a lecture in Max Shine with his post today. Has everybody seen Linda? Linda Art Chocolate. We've seen Linda's bars that she's done this week. One of them I think is just Midnight Blue and it's black, but just outstanding. Really nice. So Twisted Tulip, hello. Bitology there. Walaikum salam. Mother Baker, how you doing, Mo? Who else have we got? Chapel Lane Chocolates, hello sir. Andrew there, Styling Chocolates up in Aberdeen, I should say. Chapel Lane Chocolates, I think is in, you're in Somerset, aren't you? I can't remember where everybody's from. Mad Crumbs, hello. Gosh, Melina, hello. Surfer Leg Chocolates in New Zealand, hello. Coco Jones, how you doing? They're in London. Who else? Chrissy's in Sweden or Denmark. I think she's in Sweden. I can't remember. I've got to see her every Friday night to try and remember this. So, finally able to hear it. Like, yeah. Do you know what? The thing with the live, the reason you need to catch the live, one is you get to see everybody else for the night, and there's always lots of little conversations going on within the chat, and I can't save those conversations because when I upload this to Instagram later, or I save this and upload it to Instagram, and then I put it onto YouTube, all the little comments that are here have kind of gone. So when you join it live, you can ask questions and I'll answer them, obviously. But you won't get to see all those other little conversations that are going on. And I'll tell you why they're important. Because somebody will ask a question, and then within all the comments, you get suppliers, different opinions or different answers or other people's experience. And this is all what Chocky Chat is, right? Helping each other, helping all of us get better at what we do so we can just get on and run our businesses. That's it. We don't do negative. We ain't got time for that. We're super helpful. If you know the answer, go ahead and answer. If you don't know the answer, sit back and listen and enjoy the experience of other people sharing their experience, right? So, made by Wix. There you got some lovely stuff. Got people in Greece. Hello. Pretty fancy chocolates there in New Zealand. Who else have we got? Mrs. So Sassy's joined us. Hello, Mrs. So Sassy. Sally Devlin. May Chocolates. Did everybody see May Chocolates? Go and have a look at the post she's done where she's painted. I think they're green and yellows, right? I think they're green and yellows. I have to put my glasses on to have a look at that. Absolutely outstanding. Really amazing. Daft Chocolatier. Thank God it's Chocky Chat Friday. Happy days, yeah. But yeah, go and have a look at May Chocolates. Absolutely outstanding. Yeah, Chrissy's in Sweden. I thought I got that right. Who else have we got? Kelly's there. Happy to be back this week. Kelly had a week. Kelly's busy doing television and all that famous stuff, right? Well done, Kelly. Do you know what? We are all rooting for you. It's just lovely to see the journey that you are on and you've been on. We've got Gary at Night's Candy Shop. He's here in Nevada. I don't know, is that a storm? Is it raining? It doesn't rain in Nevada, is it? Stephanie there at Forest Road Chocolates. Hello, I'm going to send some different things. Pinky cupcakes. Give me a minute to scroll through. There's lots of people. Anyway, hello Chocky Chat crew. How's everybody doing? Everybody's posting some amazing stuff. It's all been hands-on classes this week. People from Colombia, Italy, Malta. We got more next week. I don't mean that in a bad way. It's just it's people coming in from all over the world, and it's just amazing to do the classes with people, and that they will spend their money to come and spend time and do the class here. And it's not just chocolate, because we talk about business. We talk about the business side and on scaling up, and how people are always quite surprised when they walk into this room, because this is where I started doing chocolate, and it's how small a space you need to actually start producing the volume. You are always going to be restricted by the number of molds that you have. That's always going to be, it's not how much chocolate you can temper, because you can control that and you can scale that up quite quickly. But you're always limited by how many molds you've got and how quickly you can make them in a day and turn them out. And I think one of the challenges for the hands-on class is that lots come here and believe that you have to paint one day, shell the next, and then fill the next day. And then we make chocolates and turn them out, and they're like glass after 6 hours, sometimes less. So it can be done. But it's lovely meeting people from all over the world who've got problems, had difficulties, and when you show them certain ways and certain techniques and certain ways to I suppose circumnavigate round how you would do things slightly differently, and I explain how we'd use the melting tanks and silk and all those bits and pieces, they kind of go away and go, do you know what, I get it. And it's that's a lovely moment, right? That's a lovely moment. Let me scroll back. There's a couple of questions there. Dolce Mera. I can't wait to temper some chocolate the lazy way. If you know, you know. Oh, do you know? I'll explain, because I did a little poll here, and it's just to do with a comment. I did, the chocolate forum. I don't go on there very often, and I don't answer on there for this very reason. Is you'll answer it from a professional point of view, and somebody go, no, you're wrong. It's like, oh, okay, we'll tuck my 40-year career away and we'll listen to your, which is fine. I'm open to somebody else's opinion. It's what makes the world fruitful and colourful, right? But somebody had asked a question, and it was literally, no, tempering with silk is easy. I'm like, hang on, I can't graze past that without going, no, I need to interject here. Tempering with silk's not lazy. It's fast, it's efficient, it's clean, and it's new technology. And I think my wife and I were talking about this earlier, that like you need to embrace new ideas and new things that are happening. The key to success, one of the keys to success, I think, is that make things that people want to buy, okay? And you make things that people want to buy, not necessarily things that you like eating yourself, but make things that people want to buy. And you kind of need to keep up with trend to some extent. So that's whether it's the technique that other people are using because it's new, it's interesting, and it drives engagement, and it gets people, you might reach a market that you don't necessarily know, or customers that you don't know, and it brings them to your kind of set. I think the other thing is that you just need to embrace change. And I've been a chef many years. I've seen it come and go. I've seen trends come, I've seen trends go. And you have to keep up. I think you have to keep up with what's going on. You need to know what the rest of your market's doing. Most of us in chocolate that are home produced are fully immersed in the bonbons, looking at what everybody else is doing, working out those techniques, working out those skills, just to keep you current. Because I think if you're not current and you don't keep ahead, it doesn't mean you need to make what everybody else is making, but you need to stay up to date with the trend. Otherwise you get well and truly left behind, and it happens very, very quickly. I've seen chocolatiers, I talk to lots of businesses, I talk to hundreds of businesses. Some want to keep things quite traditional, but then also want to have a sideline where it's ultra modern so that they can fit their market and their customers. Because everything you're making is for somebody else to buy, not you. So just because you like it doesn't mean it's amazing. They have to like it. And as I said, we're fully immersed in this chocolate craft. And it's a labour of love, because we probably, me included, we probably spend more time looking at stuff than maybe we should, right? Which is fine, because I think it's kind of a harmless pursuit. And it's generally quite calming, chocolate, and the people involved in chocolate generally are quite calming. Going back to that comment, I just kind of think it's a little bit unfair from my point of view that, like, if somebody asks a question, it's just kind of put them down. I think we all know who and what I'm talking about. So I kind of went ahead and answered. Silk, I had all hands-on classes this week, so I don't get much time to do chocolate now because other things are taken over, right? Which is fine. I had to embrace that change and I had to make that decision. Do we try and balance both? What do we do? And we've got to head in the direction that's good for us as a business, economically, strategically, and financially, right? So I got a chance to make some chocolates this week. I did those. You can't see very well, right? I don't think the phone shows off what's going on there. But the middle of that was sprayed with the fuchsia, and the outside was sprayed with the purple shimmer. So what's happened is it's made the outside look really blue going through to the fuchsia in the middle. And then I wanted to just test some of the new colours, because you've got the grey, 50 shades, the green, and then the egg yellow as well, right? So we did those. What I wanted to do, though, on that little video, I talked about this the other week. You know, when you put the chocolate, when you're doing eggs, okay, and if you look at the outside of that, it's quite flat, okay? Whereas if you look at the inside of that one, that's really thin shell, and that's a thicker shell, okay? With this one, when you feel this one and you tip the chocolate out, there's this real, you want to turn it upside down and give it a tap. What happens is you don't end up with this lovely smooth middle. What happens is it all kind of looks a little bit lumpy and bumpy, all right? With the bigger the mould, what you don't want to do is tip it upside down. What you want to do is just tip it up on its side first. Let everything run out as best you can. You can give it a little tap when it's like that, and then slowly turn it over. And what you'll find is nothing drips out from this top edge. It all drips out from the bottom here. So we get a slightly thicker leading edge there, which is fine, because that's the bit that you want to scrape flat. The flatter that edge, the flatter those edges are, the easier it is to weld the two together, okay? These have been in and out of the mould, so the easier it is to weld those two together. When it's a really, really thin edge, like you would get if you turned it upside down and kept scraping, you'll end up with a very, very thin edge, which is kind of what's happened on that one there, okay? I'll hold that one up. It's got really, really thin edge to it, so we can put a cap on top of it. If you want to weld two together, a slightly different thing. So yeah, just don't tip it upside down, just tip it on its side and let it run out, and you'll get a nice smoother inside of it. Tap to let it run off the bottom, okay? Then you can tilt it and scrape it, right? And it'll just give you the eggs. A couple of questions I got this week was, why don't the eggs, when you do big Easter eggs or bigger pieces, it didn't retract. If you try and do Easter eggs with a 4-drop chocolate, you're gonna have a problem. There's more weight than there is strength to make it retract, okay? So it will eventually retract, but if you've got a really thin shell, it's probably not going to retract completely, or shrink, I should say. And if you try and take it out, chances are you're going to break it, because there isn't much tensile strength there. So you would shell, I shelled this with, it's Coca Barry's Excellence, which is it's a 2-stroke 3-drop. It's nearer a 2-drop than it is. It's very, very sticky. I did thin it down by 40 grams in the kilo, just to give me like a 2.5 drop. I think it's nearer a 2-drop than it is a 3. Just to give me a tiny little bit more fluidity to tap the air bubbles out. Thicker the chocolate, the more the air bubbles, all right? But for the shells, you kind of want a thicker chocolate. If you try and shell with a 4-drop, you're probably going to need to shell twice, right? And the other thing I was going to say is, I did test some colours this week. So we got some new colours launched. When I say to people that we can paint and we can shell almost immediately, what I mean is, for anybody that's lucky enough to have one of these, okay, this is silk. This is the lazy way of doing it. This is a lazy way of doing it. Have I got a mould nearby? Let's use this one. Give me a moment. I'll show you what I do. So when I'm testing colours, we'll make some up. We'll put them in a sample bottle. Okay. Look at the shine on those. Just if I'm in a hurry or if I really need to. Sorry, I'm just going to get a chocolate out of that mould. That's been in the incubator for some time. Now, when I go to use that, that is going to be. We can squeeze some up. That's just going to be a solid mass. Look, right? Gosh, that's a bit. People looking at the screen go, "God, James, do you know what?" So that's over tempered. So technically that's silk, right? But what I can do, and I do this on the hands-on class, what I can do is paint that into a mold, right? And get a decent color, get a decent layer in there. Okay. The reason I wouldn't do that in production is I use 4 or 5 times the amount of cocoa butter that I need to. So that'd be a very thick layer. However, that's actually dry already, right? That's dry already. So if we give that a couple of minutes, that will fully crystallize just because it's too tempered, right? I've got smurf fingers now. So it's over crystallized. So technically we've kind of made silk, right? If I leave that out for another minute or two, that'd be like a rock hard concrete brick. So if I have, what I do have in there is I will keep gold, bronze, silver, just in a smaller amount. And if I want to do just some little accentuated lines, rather than tempering down a big bottle, what we'll do is we would literally do that shape and paint that, just finger paint that into the mould. But you do use a lot more cocoa butter than you kind of might want to, alright? So there's no excuse for spraying or painting by brush, but like if you have got easy temper or an incubator, you can put small amounts in there, hold it, and I just have it on a standby when I'm decorating or I'm doing bits and pieces. Saves me having to empty this completely all the time, alright? So that's definitely a lazy way of doing it. It's also a very smart, clever way of doing it. But yeah, going back to, I was talking about being efficient and using new technology, and I was thinking about this comment earlier on the forum where it's like, well, tabling is the way forward. Yeah, tabling works, tabling's good. I don't believe for a moment that it changes the flavour at all in any way, shape or form, or creates a better texture. Tempering is tempering. When we put beta crystals into chocolate, we will predict how it will set, how it will crystallise and how it will shrink. Simple as that, simple science. If it was lazy, calettes would be lazy, because we used to get blocks of chocolate that were like 4 inches thick, weighed 10 pound, 5 kilo, 6 kilo blocks, and you had to chisel them with a knife and you would just be chocolate everywhere. And then they brought out the calettes, which you could just pour out what you wanted. So if you only need 300 grams, you could weigh 300 grams for a recipe. Whereas if you needed 300 grams, you had to get the block down, unwrap it, chisel off loads of it. It shattered everywhere. You broke the tips off your knife, which you had to go and find. And then the floor was awash with shards of chocolate. So that wasn't very efficient. And when calettes came out, it's just a new way of doing it, and that's all we use now. We buy chocolate in tiny little calette buttons, and it's fast, it's efficient, and it's a clean way to measure out what you need. I think you have to embrace technology. So whether that's airbrush, whether that's turbines, whether it's new bits of kit, if it helps you produce more efficiently and more effectively, it's a good thing. If you've got staff, things like silk, you don't have to teach somebody how to temper. They just have to melt chocolate and measure it, the temperature, which is not that difficult. So if the instruction was melt this chocolate to 33 degrees and they had 1%, which they should be able to work out, and stir it through, the chocolate's good. Same as continuous tempering machines. In terms of low labour skill, stand in front of this machine, put this tray under and then tip it out. You don't need to teach them tempering. So they are solutions to problems, right? So I don't think for a minute it's lazy. Not cleaning up after yourself, that's lazy. Not taking the rubbish out every night, that's lazy. Not starting work at the time that you said you were going to, I think is lazy, unless you work for yourself and you say, right, I'm gonna have a day off, like I am tomorrow. I'm not having a day off tomorrow, I've got loads to do. But yeah, I thought I'd answer that. Let me scroll back, I'm sure there's some questions. Loads of people joined us. made chocolates. Let me scroll back 1 second. Was I talking that long? Art and chocolate. Tuning in from Colorado. Linda's in Colorado. Are you going to go and see? Are you going to go and see our friend at Colorado Cocoa Pod? Twisted Tulip. My easy temper is on its way as we speak. Can't wait to get lazy. Happy days. Nothing lazy about it at all. The hardest thing that I have to do is melt chocolate. That's it. Any one that I want as well. Milk white dark. I don't use ruby. I think we all know that. But milk white dark caramelized. Any variety that I want. I just got to melt it, which is not particularly difficult, is it? And I need to weigh it, which I have a machine to do that with. I have to balance things. Nothing lazy about it at all. In fact, I think it's intuitive, and I think it's an efficient way to do it. So, Chocolate Chocolates, hello sir, how are you? Harry's. Easter eggs, textured versus smooth. I don't know what you mean. Daft Chocolatier. Ned at N2 Sweet Lab. Dolce Mara, I found it a nightmare before with all the stirring. As I'm doing chocolates as a hobby, it was sometimes difficult to squeeze the chocolate making in. With Silk, it's doable. Totally. It's always on. It's always on, it's always available. And the longer it's on, honestly, the better the Silk is, right? So, because it's much, much smoother. If you try and use it after 24 hours, there's little lumps in there and you have to start squashing them against the side of the bowl. But once it's been in there and it's really soft and you've got the temperature right and it's really, really smooth, you drop it in, you give it a stir, you wait 30, 40 seconds, give it another really good stir, tap the bubbles out and shell, right? Truly, truly, we call it fire and forget, right? I'm being told I need a moderator on my live video. I don't know what that's about. Yasmin Chocolates, hello. Daft Chocolatier, what's Silk? I think you know. Mind Your Temper, I think is down there in Australia, in New Zealand, sorry, as well. Dolce Mara, I don't know, I've not seen those. Cocomania Scotland, hello. Hashim. How are you? How long do you keep your cocoa butters in the dehydrator? Mine lowest is 35, a bit warm, right? Yeah, Yasmin. I've answered this so many times. That is just for melting the volume of cocoa butter. I will then temper it after that. Okay, so Yasmin, I think when I run the next cocoa butter class, you should join that one. I will keep all the butters in there. It just means I have lots of butters that are melted when I'm teaching, or if I'm feeling ultra creative. If I need more, I'll melt more. I'll put bottles in. We have bigger amounts in there, but I don't hold cocoa butters in temper. I don't bother. There's no point. Temper them, use them, put them back in there out the way. It's an efficient way to do it. Trying to keep them in temper. If you try and keep them in temper too long, they go like what happened to that blue one. They just over temper, all the crystals bind up, and then it gets thick, and then you can't paint with it. And you'll end up using 3 or 4 times the amount that you need. So, what else have we got? Why is everyone calling it the lazy way? Did I miss something? Yeah, it was a post on the forum. Question on the Silk machine. What's the rule on putting them in the machine? Does it need to be pre-tempered? Because I get 25 kilo blocks. No, you don't know. So like if I melted some cocoa butter, I just let it cool down. Say I melted some cocoa butter to 40 degrees and it's fully liquid. I just let that cool down a little bit, put it into one of the little metal tubs, and I turn the machine on. And over a period of time, at the right temperature, it will start to crystallize, and eventually it will form the right crystals. Okay, it doesn't need to be tempered to go in there. It takes a little bit longer. But if you get the big 25 kilo blocks of cocoa butter, just chisel off what you need, put it in there. 24, 48 hours, 48 hours is better. You can get it done in less. But like I said, there'll be tiny little lumps in there that just need softening. So the longer it's in there, the smoother it gets, if I'm honest. So, but it doesn't need to go in there tempered. You can put it in melted, providing when you put it in there, it's kind of below 30 degrees, okay, and then the machine will hold it at the right temperature. So, I'm a hobbyist and don't have anything fancy. I enjoy having total control over the chocolate temper, absolutely. As you want to do more volume, seeding and tabling starts to become a messy progress. Like if you need 7 or 8 kilos of chocolate tempering, 7 or 8 kilos is 80 grams, which there's more than 80 grams in it. I think there's enough silk in there to do 300 kilos. So you can, it's just a faster, more efficient way of doing it without having to overthink everything, right? So there's enough stuff going on. I was reading the documents you sent us from your class. Too much information to learn. Is the cocoa butter class is a good class. The cocoa butter class that we do, it is about cocoa butter, but some of it relates to chocolate. And for anybody that took the class, you'll know what I mean. Once you understand what cocoa butter does and how you need to control it, so that you can guarantee the end product. If you want super shiny, if you want the snap, if you want all the good characteristics of chocolate, the cocoa butter that's in the chocolate needs tempering. The cocoa butter class is not just about the colours and how to use them. It's also, we kind of look at what cocoa butter does when it's in the chocolate and why you might put, why you temper fillings, why you would add silk to things, why you would control those temperatures to make sure we got the right crystals forming. It's just so that it guarantees a product at the end, right? Because if you don't, you could end up, it might work, it might not work. Well, everything we need to know about chocolate, we kind of already know. There's no real surprises. It will behave as predicted. It will behave as you treated it. So if you haven't treated it well and you haven't done and followed the rules, it's not going to behave at the end as you expect, right? So, Charity saying how to make 3-drop chocolate into 4-drop chocolate. Generally speaking, an average chocolate that's 3-drop, if you add 70 grams of cocoa butter, you'll take it from a 3-drop to a 4-drop, okay? 70 grams, about 7%, okay? So it's a lot easier if I say for a kilo of chocolate, add 65 to 70 grams of cocoa butter will change its fluidity, all right? Don't need a lot. Just make sure it's a nice cocoa butter as well, because you're going to add a cocoa butter, and if it's not a very good one, and it's can have some kind of weird taste to it, especially some of the deodorized, they kind of smell nice, but then when you eat them, you're like, that doesn't taste nice. Yeah, just do your taste test. Like if you like it, if you put it into the chocolate, it should be okay. Right? Generally speaking, you get what you pay for with chocolate, with cocoa butter. So I'm making vegan marshmallow. Recipe asks for locust carob bean gum, which I can't source anywhere in New Zealand. Is there anything else that might work the same? Already using agar on a recipe? No, lotus gum and carob, it's very sticky, stringy, rehydrate. It's actually a hydrocolloid, so there isn't an alternative to it because it's got this elasticity to it, and it also will melt down when you add the hot syrup, which is what makes the marshmallow rise with the air bubbles in it, and then the carrot or whatever, the bean gum, can we call it gum arabic, as it dries and it sets and it binds up, it's what keeps that shape, right? So there isn't really an alternative to it. Have a look and see if you can find gum arabic, because it's the same thing. All right. Do you need to retemper Gianduja after storing it? If you take it above 33.8, you'll have broken all the beta crystals, in which case, yes, you do. But you would always, like if you've got something you need to melt it, you might as well melt it to 35, 40, cool it down again so it's fully blended and all those fats have dispersed and broken down into smaller molecules, and then retemper it. Giandujas are really quick. And you know, if you've got some and you want to cool it, just a bowl of ice water. If you've got your, there was a lady here on a class and she lectured me the whole day on Gianduja. Right, there you go, I said it. Still going to call it Gianduja though, because it's English, innit? Your Gianduja would go in there. I'd heat it to about 40, microwave, however it is that you want to do, double boiler. Then just sit that over a bowl of ice water. Stir it until it comes down to about 28, 27. the nice thing is that it generally, like if you do this 50-50, 60-40, generally they're quite still fluid at 23 degrees. So you can pipe them at a lower temperature and they sit level. But just sit out with a bowl of ice and stir until you get that temperature down. And that will temper it. That'll be enough to temper it, right? It's only about controlling the cocoa butter that's in there. And the cocoa butter will be in the chocolate. Hopefully you're using couverture, so it will have cocoa butter in it. If it's got cocoa butter in it, there is an opportunity to temper it, and if there's an opportunity to temper it, it means we can get that filling, whether it's a ganache, Gianduja, even a caramel. If we put chocolate in, it's got cocoa butter in it, we can then temper it. Now we can force it to crystallize or firm up faster. So I do that on the hands-on class here. We will temper a praline, and I'll say we'll be able to cap this in less than kind of 10 minutes. So we'll fill it, we'll leave it to sit, we'll give it a blast of cold air, we'll get it to start crystallizing. 5-10 minutes later we can cap it, we can turn out the chocolate, and the filling is still a little bit liquidy, and it's a little bit oh my god, I didn't know you could do that. So for the people that are waiting 12, 14, 24 hours for their fillings to solidify, if you understand what tempering is, we can force a filling to crystallize or firm up so that we can cap it. Very often all we're waiting for is the filling to be firm enough so we can put a lid on it and get them turned out into boxes and sold, right? It doesn't take 4 days to make chocolate. We can paint on the same day and shell as soon as they've retracted or shrunk. As soon as I've seen that, we'll fill them. As soon as the filling's firm enough, we'll cap them, right? Sugar and spice bake shop. What classes do you recommend for beginners? Any advice on when you are starting out? Oh, all of Chocky Chat. All of Chocky Chat's a lesson. My classes, I'm hoping next week we will open that up, and I've just got a little bit of a backlog. I said, and I've emailed lots of people that asked that question. I had so many booked. It's literally taken a month, 6 weeks to clear the backlog. It's great, and I'm not complaining, but I didn't keep my eye on the volumes that were selling, and before you know it, there were more classes than I could deal with in a month, and they're one-to-one, so it's an hour and a bit of my time. The most I can do is 6 in a day. Well, it's taken me 6 weeks to clear the backlog, right, as well as hands-on classes and all the other business. So I'm hoping next week, yeah, they'll be back on, and we'll get going with that again. Thank you, Hashim. What else? Questions have we got? Can we use micro and praline and ganaches? Yes, you can. Not for food use, teaching aid only, which surprises me because there's never any left. You'd make your ganache, right? So straightforward ganache. Let's do a recipe. Milk chocolate ganache. Milk chocolate ganache. We're going to do 110 grams of cream. We're going to do 40 grams of glucose. We're going to melt those together. And if we've got like a 48% milk chocolate, I do 175 grams. We'll melt the chocolate. I don't like putting hot cream onto cold chocolate. Not good. Not for me. It's not the way to do it. If we've got a melted chocolate, the cream goes in much easier, and we're not, instead of shattering it to pieces, we actually have chocolate's got an emulsifier in it. Okay, so it's either soya lecithin or sunflower lecithin, but basically it's an emulsifier. When the chocolate's solid, the emulsifier isn't doing anything. Okay, it works when it's a liquid, in a liquid form. So if we put hot cream onto cold chocolate and shatter it with a stick blender, the lecithin doesn't really have a chance to work. Whereas if we have melted chocolate and we put hot cream, so we've got 110 grams of cream, 40 grams of glucose, this will give us about a 3 to 4 week shelf life milk chocolate ganache. 110 grams of cream, 40 grams of glucose, 175 grams of milk chocolate, which will melt and we'll add the hot cream to it. And if you put it in 3 parts, you'll find that you'll get a much smoother ganache with not so many lumps in it. So we'll pour a third in, stir, it'll look a bit wrong. Pour the next third in, it starts to look a little bit better, but it looks a little bit split. When you add the last third in and give it a really good stir, You don't necessarily need to stick blend it, because you'll find that it's super smooth and it's very glossy. Okay, that's because the lysins had chance to work. If you're doing bigger amounts, I get it, big stick blender, but not something I teach. And that's a lesson that goes back to a guy, Professor Gianduja V, sadly not with us anymore. He took me for chocolate work, 1987, and he was talking about that to us then. Don't put cream, hot cream, on cold chocolate. Stop it. And if he caught you doing it, yeah, the punishment's quite swift. Anyway, we've made the ganache and it's all good. What we're going to do is try and drop that temperature to round about 34 degrees, and then we'd add 1% of the chocolate weight. So I've got 185 grams of, I said 185 grams, 180 grams, 175 grams of milk chocolate. I'd do 1.7 grams of this. Okay, so I've got my ganache, it's at 34 degrees. I would sprinkle my micro over the top of it, 1.7. You can do this 1%, you can do 1%, you can do 2% if you want, and nothing bad's going to happen. And you're going to stir that or stick blend that in. Once all those little bits have melted, you're going to tip it straight into the piping bag, be around about 32 degrees. Lay it flat until it's just at the right temperature, ideally about 29 degrees, and then pipe. Fill your moulds, okay? And you'll find it will crystallise quite quickly, so you're going to have to work fast, right? But yes, micro, it's just in a crystal form. If I leave the lid off the silk here for a minute, which I've done, and for anybody that owns this, you'll know what I mean. You know, when if you take the tub out and you just leave it on the side, you can't get the lid off because it sets like concrete in minutes. It's so fast acting. The difference between silk and micro is silk stirs in very easily, whereas micro, you just need a little bit more heat, so you might have to just put a hairdryer on it just to raise the heat up, or maintain that kind of 33 degrees, just so you can melt those tiny little crystals. But once they're in there and you're stirring and it's agitated, then those crystals will melt into it, it will bind up. And they're binary, because one will join another and join another, join another, join another, and that's what will that mass that goes throughout your filling. And they lay side by side, okay, and then they mesh as well. That's what will speed up your filling firming up, okay, and then eventually it will crystallise once it goes cold, right? So why is the shine less after finger colouring than with an airbrush? It shouldn't be, it should be exactly the same. Could be your finger's a bit too warm. Once we take cocoa butter, on the warm up, once we take cocoa butter, you know, if we warm tempered cocoa butter, by the time we get to 33 degrees, we've melted 50% of the beta crystals. The dullness is not actually going to be much to do with the cocoa butter, it is as it is to be with the right temperature and tempering of the chocolate, because it's the two together. So tempered cocoa butter painted and in temper, and not too warm and at the right temperatures, and then the chocolate also at the same. So the dullness normally comes to is mishandling of both of them, right? Was that at school yet? No, I did my advanced, so Chapel Lane Chocolates is an ex-military chef, same as me. When I did my CSOR, I did my advanced pastry, so it's we did 706, 1, 2 and 3, and then 3 part 2. When I did 3 part 2, Gianduja V came up to the school, and he was brutal, because really, I mean, just incredible. The stuff that I learned from him, I still rely on today. So he was teaching us stuff in the kind of late 80s, which is still relevant today, and it's about these beta crystals and how they perform, and that's where my knowledge comes from. It's like working. And he was the first professor of patisserie. It was mind-blowing. And when I think back to all that stuff now, and I get asked questions now, it's most of the stuff that he taught us and spoke to us about, because he would do these lectures. Very angry man. Like if you present all your stuff and he'd just turn it all upside down and go, and not say a word, and you know, you find out a week later you passed. So he never gave anything away. But I tell you, anybody that does know John Hubert, and this was his thing. Right? I've got to share this story. He would go off on a rant. So say we were making a chocolate ganache, okay? You had to scrape the bowl down so it was clean, okay? And if he found a little bit in there, like God help you, he would absolutely unload on you, because he'd say, we measure things to the gram. So if we've measured it to the gram and you've left a bit in there, then that isn't part of the recipe. So why did you bother weighing and measuring? You might as well just done a handful or something, right? Absolutely brutal. Like you had to, you know, if you were whipping, if you were making meringue, say it was like 60 egg white meringue, he'd want to see the big bowl afterwards, spotlessly, like it didn't need washing. Because if that wasn't in the mix, he'd say it failed. It's absolutely. I got on with him fine, but I had a few things that he turned upside down, and he'd just stare at me, waiting for my reaction. It's like, I don't know what to say, because this is prior to me going to work for the royal family, right? So the expectation for us on that course was very, very different. Like, they didn't want just excellence, they wanted beyond that. I'm grateful that I had people like that teaching me, and he was very generous, and I learned that, you know, he said something to me, I'll share this because fond memories, right? He said to me, I'm a busy man, but I never ever miss an opportunity to answer questions for somebody, because it will change their whole life and their whole outlook. And if somebody's taken their time to teach you, you should never be so busy that you can't teach back, right? And it's kind of a little mantra that I live by. I've had an amazing career, but I didn't do it on my own. I've had amazing people help me, and amazing people teach me, and amazing people take their time to go through it and explain it in a format that I better understood it. And when he said I'm a busy man and I never miss that opportunity, I just thought that, you know, that's a lovely mantra to live by, because he was incredibly generous and incredibly knowledgeable, and he was the first professor of patisserie, so you didn't get access to him very easily. So what else have we got? What other questions? Chocolate Shells joined us. I think some ICAM went out to the Chocky Chat crew this week, didn't it? Did everybody do their tastings? Did everybody like their ICAM? The Edelweiss, which is the white chocolate, is 10% less sugar than normal white chocolates. It is the Edelweiss by ICAM is really, really nice white chocolate. It is without a doubt my go-to. Nothing hugely wrong with W2. I think it's a straightforward caliber W2 white chocolate. It's just a little bit too sweet. If they just backed up a little bit on the sweetness. Harriet saying, I use a Thermomix for my ganache. Once all the ingredients are in, I've been taught to set it to high 40 when emulsifying. Is that right? You'd need to, is that including, Harriet, is that including the cream being cold? You would, because you're trying to get the cream to melt the chocolate. So unfortunately there's no point in going higher. You can make cold ganache, which is taking melted chocolate and add cold chocolate to it, and it will keep it in a liquid form, and it's only when it gets to a much lower temperature that it will crystallize. But it's all about temperature thresholds. Do you know what, Harry, if it works for you, it's fine. I don't think there's a right or wrong way there. I do make ganache, but I tend to, we'll put the cream in, and we'll take that up to kind of 75 degrees. As soon as it's at that, then we will add the melted chocolate. We'll turn the temperature right down. We'll add the melted chocolate, and I'll just use it to blend and emulsify. I only use the Thermomix if I need to make like 2 kilos of ganache, and I've got other things going on. But I don't make a huge amount of ganache. I am definitely on the route of doing caramels and other bits and pieces. So, is there shipping to the Sultan of Oman? I need to speak to. Send us a message, Sultanate of Oman. Send us a message. I used to live in Muscat. I can't see why not, because we ship to Dubai and Saudi and UAE and Bahrain, so I can't imagine Oman is any different, unless it's being sent out to Nizwa or Seeb. But I suspect that you're probably in Muscat or nearer to Fujairah. Yeah, Hashim, too true. Everybody's gone quiet. Why has everybody gone quiet? The cream is warmed. Harriet, if the cream's warmed, then you don't need to go higher than 40 degrees. Definitely not. I mean, like if you can set that at 35, the Thermomix, which I think you can now. Used to be it went up in increments of 10. It's like, why have you done that? The new versions, which we've got a few of them, I think I can go as low as 15 degrees. So yes, I'd set it at 30. If the cream is warmed, 35 degrees is more than enough. The higher the temperature goes, the longer it's going to take to cool down. It's the same with tempering a cocoa butter. You can heat them to 55. Great, there's no difference. Once you've gone above 33.8, all you're doing is waiting for the temperature to come down. It's just going to take you longer. So, Nadia was in Muscat last week. It was wonderful. Do you know, it's one of my favourite cities, I think, in the Middle East, because it's still kept its traditional charm. So there aren't, like Dubai. If anybody's been to Dubai, it's just like, it's a little about walking into a Versace nightmare, isn't it? It's just gold and glitzy and a bit. Muscat's kept its charm. I kind of quite like that. It still feels quite traditional, but has a modern. Once you get inside buildings, it's got this beautiful modern charm to it. But externally, it kind of blends in nicely, right? Thermomix is really good if you're doing 2 kilos of ganache. It's because you can weigh and measure and heat, and you haven't got 30 pounds to mix up, right? And you can also just keep it spinning at like 30 degrees so that you can keep taking it. We're all quiet because they're all making bonbons, right? I'm quiet. I've been awake since 1:30. Why? Where's Chapel Lane chocolate? Where's the best place to get the ICAM chocolates? Strawberry Red do them, and Home Chocolate Factory both do the ICAM range. So go and have a look. I make all my pralines now using a Thermomix. It's such a great machine. I like Thermomix. Mrs. So Sassy's got her own Thermomix now, and she was a bit reluctant to use it at the beginning, and now constant use, right? Isn't that right? Yeah, that's right. Hashim, I know you're a big fan of Amman. I like Amman as well. It's my second home going back to Amman. Chapel Lane chocolates. Yeah, have a look. Home Chocolate Factory. Strawberry Red as well. They both hold the ICAM range. It's by Agostini, but it's one I did a tasting on here with Michelle a while ago. Some really, really nice chocolate. It's really well priced, I think, as well. And I do believe that for the manufacturer of Selmy, they use the ICAM and Agostini range exclusively for those machines when they're testing and are making them. So if it works for Selmy, ICAM sounds, it does stand for something, and I can't remember off the top of my head now. It sounds like a modern word, but it's ICAM, so it's an acronym. It actually means something. It's to do with the family that kind of came up with it. So you're now tempting me to splurge on a Thermomix. I don't know how much I'd use it every day in chocolate. When we're doing melanger work with the nuts and bits and pieces, absolutely incredible. Ganaches, I know people that will temper in it, so they will melt chocolate to 45, turn the temperature off, let it circulate on speed number 3, and then they will add the seed into it until they get back down to 27, and then just wallop the speed back up, just to get a smoother chocolate, and then turn it out, and they'll hold that temperature of the chocolate so that it's in temper. So they have their uses. I think they're nice because you can, with a ganache, You can turn the speed up to 4.5, and it's at the right speed to really emulsify things like you would a stick blender, right? So, but you can weigh, measure, and do everything in the same bowl, so it lessens the amount of washing up and running into a sink and all that kind of thing. So, Tosca Chocolates, how are you, sir? I haven't heard from you. How's the chocolate making going, Tosca Chocolates? If you do chocolate, if you do other patisserie type things, though, I think Thermomix is worth its weight in gold. They're not cheap. They're not cheap, but good things aren't, right? So they certainly, like all my time in professional kitchens, it was the #1 desirable piece of equipment in the hot kitchen, in the pastry kitchen, in the lard, in all of it. It was just we had 1 or 2 machines, but we had like 15 bowls, and it still wasn't enough, right? Do you add icing sugar to your pralines? I've been seeing different recipes that getting confused which is best, caramel or icing sugar. Dolce Mara, depends on what you're making. Caramelized sugar, like, so if we went down the French traditional method traditional, and did like the hazelnut à l'ancienne, then yeah, you would do caramelized chocolate. For things like pistachio, I will use, I won't do 50-50. I won't do a caramelized sugar because I just think it ruins the flavor of pistachio. So we will do an icing sugar, or a powdered, what you call a powdered sugar, and I might just do 25% just to lift off some of the bitterness of that husk. It really depends what I'm making. You can do a hazel, so you can toast hazelnuts, get them in the melanger, and if you want to add icing sugar, you're just not going to need the 50-50. You can backtrack a little bit, so it's because you're adding pure sucrose, so it is going to be very, very sweet, so you wouldn't need to add so much. I think looking at the difference between the two, and I have this conversation regularly between Gianduja and praline. Gianduja, we've got a nut paste that we would add chocolate to, so we can, for instance, if you were doing hazelnut, you can really elevate that hazelnut flavour just by adding the right chocolate to it. Whereas if we take that hazelnut paste and we add caramelized sugar to it, we can double its volume, but when we add the chocolate, I just don't, for me personally, I just don't get that height of hazelnut flavour. However, you do get that background of caramelization, if that's what you're looking for. So it really depends on what you want to make. If I was doing like toasted almonds, I would use icing sugar as opposed to caramelized sugar because they're quite a delicate nut, and I just don't want to ruin that flavor by by adding a caramelized sugar to it. So I think it depends what it is that you want to make in terms of what's the flavor profile at the end that you're looking for. The traditionalists will say, no, that's wrong, that's not the way to do it. It's a bit like the story with, like, do you make carbonara with cream or without cream? Well, if you're eating it and you're paying, do it the way that you like. And what do your customers, do they know the difference? Because if they don't know the difference, we're back to this new technique versus old technique, in which case it's, who cares, it's your business, you do it how the way you want to do it. I don't think there's a right or wrong way there. I think it depends on what flavour profile you're looking for. We make a hazelnut paste, and we do, I'll show you this one now, if I can find it, 1 second. So that's a hazelnut paste, and that's 10% sugar. You can't see it's back to front there, but it says hazelnut paste, 50 grams cocoa butter, 10% sugar. And the sugar that went in there was icing sugar, because that will go on and make a certain thing, because we'll do that 70% nut paste, 30% sugar. I've already got 50 grams of cocoa butter in there. That's fairly solid just with that 50 grams. That formula works for me for the specific thing that we do, but what I can get is a really, really high pronounced hazelnut flavour with a little mild background of the chocolate that we use, because we use a 55% chocolate with that one. So, and it's 55% at 4 drop as well. So, what is it that you're trying to achieve? Because we put a whole hazelnut in, a toasted whole hazelnut in that, and the hazelnut that goes in it is really cooked really far. Because I like in your face flavour. I don't like wishy-washy. I don't want to guess. It's either got to be full on, full volume flavour, or I kind of lose interest. So, but that's hazelnut paste, and that's 10% sugar. It's 10% sugar. It's a 3 kilo mix with 50 grams of cocoa butter in it. So 3 kilos of hazelnut, 50 grams of cocoa butter, and then 10%. So there was 300 grams of icing sugar that went in there. Right. Harriet, 2 things that changed my chocolate life: Thermomix and Easy Tempo. Yeah. Melanger I use, Premier tilting. That class will be back on next week. I tried to do viola ganache yesterday with essence. Couldn't get any taste. Chocolate took over. What can I bring? Is that violet taste? Don't know with that one. I wouldn't be doing that with a milk. That's a white chocolate. And if you had something like the Edelweiss, which is low sweetness, I think that flavour would come up. But I mean, again, it's ingredient led, isn't it? So how good is the flavour drop, right? There's some really good comments in here. Really good. What's the best type or brand of chocolate? Whatever chocolate you want to use. I'm not the one to ask about what's the best chocolate, because I've had cheap chocolates that are really good, and I've had expensive ones I'm not hugely impressed with. The chocolate that you use needs to fit your budget and do what it is that you need it to do. You also need to be able to buy the brand that's available to you when you need more. So it's all well and good getting something like the Valrhona Mangiare. Do you know how many chefs I know that have written a recipe and it's got this particular chocolate, and then when they go to get more of it, it's not available, and they're like, but that's what my menu says, and that's, now what do I do? So they end up just kind of BSing their way through it. Buy the chocolate that you like. Buy an entry-level chocolate to begin with. Don't use an expensive chocolate to shell with. It's an absolute waste of money, my opinion. Shell with an entry-level chocolate and use the nicer chocolates for the filling, because that's the bigger amount, because that's where the flavour is. They're not buying a shell, they're buying the filling. The shell is just the vehicle to carry the filling. You need to remember that. Also, you need to get more chocolate in your chocolates, so the filling needs to be better. I don't know if there is a best chocolate. There's no easy answer to that. There's some really expensive chocolates, but you're paying not for the chocolate, for the marketing material and the brand behind it, and the mugs and the cups and the pens and the calculators that they send out to chefs that only buy that range. Buy the one that you have good access to and learn how to get the best out of it. I think that's the honest answer for me. So I'm thinking of making sesame praline, but never made it before. Not sure what the flavour profile should be. Dolcimara, toast the hazelnuts really lightly, and then they go straight into the melanger with a tiny bit of cocoa butter. And generally speaking, it's 50% seeds to 50% sugar. Don't use caramelised sugar because it ain't nice at all. It's way too bitter. If you know what tahini is, that's technically a praline, but they use oil in it. They don't put sugar in it, but it's just a sesame paste. Black or white sesame, they behave exactly the same thing, as do sunflower seeds, flax seeds. They will all turn into a liquid eventually because they're kind of oil based, right? So yeah, made chocolates, good answer. Yeah, agree with you. Every chocolate has its own purpose. Yeah, totally. Don't get wrapped up in all this. Please don't. There's so many chocolate snobs out there that are like, I only use this brand and I use that brand. I think that, you know, a friend of mine did a post the other day and said, and it was to do with naming a brand that they used, and they spent $250,000 in a year, and for that he got a cup and a plate and a calculator because he was in their club. And I think at the point that you're spending $250,000 on chocolate, they're in your club, not you in theirs, right? So what does that brand give back? Does it do advice? Does it do all these bits? Does it help everybody grow? And I think that, like the chocolate snobs, I've had cheap chocolate that's been, I've had some cheap chocolates that's absolutely amazing and not a heard of brand, which is why it was at a better price. And I've had really expensive ones and like, didn't get it, didn't understand it. And I judge competitions, I get around the world, I didn't get it at all. So, yeah, I know what I'm tasting for. The chocolate needs to do the job that you need it to do. And if it's only the shell and the carrier, don't get so obsessed with the brand of the chocolate. I choose chocolate on the flavour. And I don't know what we've got up here. I bet we've got 8 or 9 different brands, and they're not all high end at all. And I'll use 823. I can see 823. I can see Chocolate Gold. I can see W2. I can see Edelweiss. I've got Cocobari. I've got Luca. I've got Valish, I've got Belcalade, I've got Valrhona. We've got loads of ICAM, which I love. Some of the ICAM I really, really like. So the Mirabelle, I think it's 54%. I think it's called Mirabelle. Really, really nice. A little bit thick, needs thinning down a tiny bit. It's nearer to a 2-drop than it is anything else, but that's fine. Great for Easter eggs, absolutely. The Mirabelle, nail it for Easter eggs and bigger moulds. Just make sure we tap all the air bubbles out. Here's chef's tip of the day. If you've got chocolate in a mould, you know how we all do this, right? Get the chocolate bubbles out here first, okay? We're not trying to burst them, we're just trying to get them to come to the surface, right? So tap the air bubbles out here and then give it a stir with the stick up, okay? We don't want to start adding more air into it, so a little stir like that. Then, when you pour it into your mould, you won't have to sit there or stand there doing that so much. Okay? Get the air bubbles out here. Then you don't have to. It's really obvious that, isn't it? And there's people sat there going, "Why didn't I think of that?" It's Chocky Chat. It's a Chocky Chat thing, right? Here to help and not be lazy, right? Black sesame is stunning with either licorice or raspberry. Do black sesame with lime. You know how black pepper brings out the flavour of pineapple? Lime brings out the flavour of black sesame. That's my tip of the day. That's the lazy way. Right, it's 9:30. We are fully topped up. Let me show you the eggs once more. We're fully topped up. That one there, that green one, that's the leaf green. It's so bright. It's really, really nice. Quite impressed when I made that. I put my glasses on. It's like, even though I get excited when I make stuff. It's just, that's how I am. We've got lots of butters. Hoping the classes will be back on next week. Be nice to people. If you answer questions, answer it nicely. If you can't answer it nicely, don't write anything. That's just life, right? Isn't it? Be nice to everybody. Have a great week. Thank you for tagging me. Thank you for purchasing. Thank you for tuning in. I'll see you all in a few minutes when it's episode 130. I could try and get some guests for next week, so I'm just waiting on a couple of them coming back to me. Have an absolutely amazing week, and keep chocolatiering, chocolatiers. But Chocky Chat crew, you are totally the best. Absolutely adore every single one of you. Have a lovely week. Take care.